Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. Give me just a second to welcome those on to the Spanish interpretation who need access to that. Buenas tardes. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros en otro foro comunitario con SOC. Como siempre, ustedes pueden escuchar el programa en español a través de una llamada de conferencia. Y el número que hay que marcar aparece aquí en la pantalla, 646-749-3122. Y la contraseña para entrar es 779-328-221. We're really excited to have those that are watching with us right now, and those that watch after our live as well. We are always happy to know we've got some viewers. So always give us a like, give us a heart, give us a hello in the comments, because we would love to know that people are watching and listening. And we love that interaction and engagement from those that are viewing. I'm Gabe Charles. I'm the program manager with SOC, and I've got Alan doing comments with us in the background. So big shout out to Alan, our public ally. And we have a really great program for y'all today, really great forum. We're going to be talking with Eileen Newcomer from the League of Women Voters Wisconsin about the Wisconsin Election Protection 2020 Fall Election Report. And we're really looking forward to seeing what they found in the voter experience surveys and these other entities that helped to create this report, and let us know how everything went down in November. And then we also have a really exciting week looking forward to. We're going to be talking with someone from Milwaukee Public Libraries tomorrow. We will have Tommy Molina on from Voces de la Frontera on Wednesday. Claire Evers will be joining us on Thursday, the Deputy Commissioner of Environmental Health at the Milwaukee Public Health Department. And then Friday, we'll be ending out the month with Reggie Jackson. So really looking forward to those guests. I also just want to remind everyone that you can absolutely be getting in touch with SOC during this time. I know the information about our phone number and our social media was on that intro flyer, but here it is again. You can always call us at 414-672-8090. You can email us. Our email is soc@socmilwaukee.org. And you can check out our website, www.socmilwaukee.org, that has tons of information about the things that we share on our forums and beyond. I also just want to take a sec to shout out our survey that always shows up in the comments. We love to know what you think about the forum, what topics you want to hear about, what guests you want to hear from. So go ahead and click on that survey. It takes less than 5 minutes just to let us know what you thought we did well, what we could improve, and any topics you want to hear about. And finally, I just want to share a quick disclaimer that the views and opinions shared today do not necessarily reflect those of SOC. But yeah, let's get right into it then. I've got Eileen here who's going to start talking to us about this awesome report that was put out. How are you doing, Eileen?
I'm doing good. Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm so thankful that you have been with us so many times, and you really helped to give us an interesting perspective on these different reports and information that come out about the election. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, no, I always love joining you, and I feel like maybe I'm starting to become a little bit more of a regular, so it's kind of exciting.
We love it. We love it. So why don't you just go ahead and start out by introducing yourself, your role with League of Women Voters Wisconsin, and then maybe a little bit about what the League does.
Sure. So I am Eileen Newcomer. I'm the voter education manager for the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin. We are a statewide organization that focuses on empowering voters and defending democracy. We also have 20 local leagues around the state, including a local chapter in Milwaukee that do work at the grassroots level to advocate in their communities. And in my role as a voter education manager, I work with our local leagues and their voter services teams to get the word out about upcoming elections and what people need to do to register to vote, make sure they have the correct ID, and then also to learn about the candidates. We don't endorse any candidates or parties, but we do want to make sure that people have information that they need so that they can make informed decisions when they go and vote. So that's one of the things I do. I also oversee our voter education work at the state level. So whether that's the content that goes out on our social media pages, any print work that we do, text banking, phone banking, that sort of thing, doing outreach directly to voters. And then the other thing that I do, I guess it's a big chunk of my work, is I oversee our election observation program, where we recruit volunteers to go into the community and see what the voting experience is like from, kind of an unbiased, nonpartisan perspective, to see, what are good things that are going on in polling places that could be replicated in other areas, and then what are some of the barriers that voters are facing that we can shed light onto to improve elections going forward.
Nice. Yeah, and that's definitely part of what we'll be talking about today as well. So really great that you shared all that. And yeah, the league does so much, and we've been sharing information about the vote411.org tool as well. So we're big fans over here at SOC. So yes, now how about you tell us about this report that just came out recently? I know it's been months in the making, but can you go ahead and tell us about it? Who was involved in making it? What kind of information was in it?
Yeah, sure. So we just released the report. Gosh, I think it was last week, but maybe it was the week before. My days are starting to run together a little bit.
Absolutely. The weeks are all one.
But so it's a recent report that was released, but it focuses on the November election and the lead up to it. So early voting, some of the things that were done, I guess in the lead up to the election, like the Elections Commission sending out that mailer to voters with information about their options to vote and the absentee ballot request form. And so we're looking back at what happened in November to, just, document what happened. And then also it has a list of recommendations in the report to improve elections going forward. And this is something that we worked on with the Wisconsin Election Protection Coalition, and that includes a lot of groups, namely ACLU Wisconsin, All Voting is Local, Wisconsin Conservation Voices, Wisconsin Voices, Common Cause, and a number of other groups as well. And so to get this information, we got it from a number of different sources. One is from our election observers who we recruited and trained to go and observe what was happening at the polls on election day. They also observed during early voting, during the post-election equipment audits, and then the recount as well. So we kind of had the full scope of the election, at least have some set of eyes on the process. And our observers go in, they have a set of questions that we ask them to report back on. And so that's one way that we collect information. The report also includes information from calls that were made to the election protection hotline. So that would be from voters who are reporting an issue, or they just need extra assistance, maybe understanding what they can use to register to vote, or they don't know where their polling place is, and that sort of thing. So that information is also included in the report. We also have our voter experience survey, which we just started doing after the April election, just because we knew that a lot of people face barriers and that they were looking for a place to, I guess, let people know what they experienced, and people that they knew would take that information and then act on it to improve the election. So we've actually had a lot of really great success from voters just reporting their experiences to us as well. And I do want to say that our voter experience survey is based off of a survey that the Wisconsin Disability Vote Coalition has put together and has sent out in the past to the people in their network. We've adapted it a little bit for a broader audience, but definitely want to lift up that we are building off of the work that they started. So it comes from that, and then also the Wisconsin Elections Commission put out their own report after the election. We were able to pull some information from their report as well to add some additional details or color to the report that we have.
Nice. Yeah, that's a lot of different components and people and sources building into this report. And so you said that the election experience, the voter experience survey is more recent, but how long has the league been putting out these kinds of reports about the election? Is that also pretty recent, or how is that always something that you have done?
So that is a longer program that we've had. We've been running the election observation program for about 10 years now. And in my 3 years at the league, it's something that I've always been working on and kind of overseeing. But again, building off of the work of our previous staff, Aaron Grunzy, and then it was a volunteer run effort before that with Carolyn Castor out of Milwaukee, started at kind of the local level, and then we've expanded it to statewide. So for about the last 10 years, we've been releasing reports like this.
Very cool. Yeah, so why don't we go into some of the key findings then? What did you find from these different sources that you pulled the information from to be something that stood out and worthy of being in the report?
Yeah, so one of the biggest takeaways for me is there was a vast improvement from the April election to the November election. And we got fewer calls and reports of issues. And I think people experienced a lot smoother time voting, I guess, and making sure that they were able to cast their ballots. We had a record number of voters go out and vote in Wisconsin, which I think is amazing and something that we should really lift up.
Yeah, and actually I pulled one of the tables, one of the charts from the report, and just wanted to lift that up here that shows I guess this doesn't give the number of voters. This was in the same section though, but just to give an idea of how many people were voting in what way. So kind of a division of, by absentee ballot or in person or on election day.
Yeah, I think that this is, I'm happy that you're sharing it, because in my kind of notes that I have next to just to prompt me of the things I wanted to make sure that I mentioned, this is one of the things that I have in there, because I do think it is so stark that in 2016, 73% of people went and voted in person, whereas in this last November, 40% did. So more people voted by mail than they did in person. I also think it's interesting that the amount of people who voted early is relatively the same. There's a 3% difference between 2016 and 2020, but there was a huge shift from voting in person to voting absentee by mail. And I think that that's something that, is pretty intuitive. We're in a pandemic. People, people don't feel safe going to the polls. And so there's a lot of people who voted absentee for the first time during this election. And it really did impact the way that elections were run, because there was a bigger focus on central count in communities where all the absentee ballots are sent to one central place to be counted. And then also, shifts the number of people who show up on election day to go and vote as well. So it also changes, I guess, the kind of the pressure points and the times of when things are really busy at the clerk's office leading up to election day, and then also on and after election day.
But yeah, my apologies for jumping the gun on that that image. But you were saying how then this has been an election that record numbers of Wisconsinites went out and voted.
Yeah, so I did. So to that point, I think that we should really celebrate that there was a record number of voters. But also we need to kind of take a look at what just happened with the February election, where we had like an 8% turnout rate. So we went from record high in the November election to really, really low in the February election. And so one of the lessons too is that, we were able to have this, record amount of voters going out and making their voices heard, because so many people were paying attention to the election. They were pressuring election officials to make voting more accessible and to add new things, send out mailers, make sure that people knew what they needed to know. There was more information about the candidates out and about. So when we're all in and we're all doing the work to make sure that people know about the election and that the election is accessible, we do get that level of turnout. And then as soon as, we close our eyes or take a step back, we can
Try
fall.
to just heal from the trauma of the election
Yeah.
overall, right?
Yeah. And then, it's understandable because, there was so much pressure on the November election, then people are like, and it kept dragging on.
Right.
So it just never seemed like it ended. But yeah, we all need to continue participating at the same level to make sure that all our voices are heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What other key findings from that?
Yeah. So that was the biggest one. We saw a lot of positive improvements. So things like there being more time for people to vote absentee because they had more awareness of voting. The drop boxes were a great addition to a lot of communities across the state. So there were a few in the April election, much more in the November election, and people really appreciated being able to utilize those to return their absentee ballots.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people who, rightfully so, were concerned about their ballots getting lost in the mail. And so they wanted to make sure that they could drop their ballot off and their clerk would have it right away. And so I think that was a great improvement. The number of absentee ballots that were rejected, that were returned and then rejected, was reduced dramatically from April to November. So it went from about 1.8% that were rejected to 0.2%. So that is a really dramatic decrease. And with the higher number of voters voting in November compared to April, that is the numbers just expand too as well.
Right.
And I think that speaks to the education that election officials, so the clerks and the elections commission did, but then also groups like SOC and the league and all our other partners going out and spreading the word about voting and just the mechanics of how do you vote absentee and what are the requirements, who has to be a witness, can it be just anybody, and that sort of thing. So that was great. For the first time, we had observers go and check out early voting, so we got some more information that we could include in the report this time around. And there were lines in several communities leading on the first couple days of early voting, and that was due to lack of staff or the condensed time for early voting. So previously communities got to set their early voting dates based on their community's needs, and this was one of the first elections where it was truncated to just 2 weeks before the election. And so for some communities, that kind of bottlenecked the amount of people going out to vote early.
Right. Yeah, that's all really interesting information though. And I know that I remember seeing lines for early voting as well in some different places in Milwaukee. And yeah, being excited about that though, because that means people were getting out early. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely remember all that was going on with the Supreme Court and the rules changing around how many weeks it could be, and all of that was definitely stressful leading up. What about you mentioned that there's recommendations as a part of the report. What kinds of, issues or improvements did the people that went and observed and the people that made the report find that could be implemented in future elections?
Yeah, there are, we do have a lot of recommendations, and some of them are kind of overarching, and then some of them get into the really nitty gritty of in this specific situation, please do this thing. But overall, I think the largest recommendations are one, continue our commitment and focus on allowing people to participate in our electoral process. Like I said earlier, we saw all these successes because people were focused, we were working together, and we were putting in the effort. And as soon as we, took a step back from that, the amount of people who voted decreased. So I think continuing that level of engagement is important. Another one is continuing voter education. So we saw a lot of improvements because of the voter education that was done, including the mailing to voters with their options to vote, and then also the absentee ballot application. Unfortunately, not all voters know that they can vote absentee in any election in Wisconsin. We're a no excuse state, so some people thought or even think that voting absentee in the November election was like a special thing because of the pandemic. And so we need to continue to provide education so that people know what their options are so they can make a decision about which method of voting is right for them. The Elections Commission added the new information on My Vote, where people can go and they can track their ballot, their absentee ballot on the way to them, and then also on the way back to the clerk. It will also flag for them if there was an issue with their ballot. So I think increasing education around that feature could be really important, especially because I think more people are going to continue voting absentee. So I don't know that we'll ever go back to a 73% in person on election day voting, or if we do, it'll be a while before we get back to that, because a lot of people think that voting absentee is convenient and easy and good on their schedule, and then also a lot of people just probably aren't going to be comfortable going back even once we start seeing more people get the vaccine and COVID being less of a concern.
Yeah, and especially with what happened in this February primary, that there was a huge snowstorm, at least here in Milwaukee. I assume for the majority of Wisconsin, they were feeling some snow that day. So just knowing that you could have already had voted by that point and had already submitted your absentee and not even have to worry about that kind of inclement weather for those election days.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like, a lot of people, I think, voted absentee for the first time because of the pandemic, but that's not the only, like, I guess, natural disaster or impediment to going and voting on election day. And it's
right.
I don't know, I feel like it's so much easier to vote if you have, this 20 to 40-day window to do your research, to vote from home, versus like having to make sure that you have time on one day to go and vote. And there's a lot of things that can come up in the day, like maybe your childcare falls through, or you get called into work and now you have to choose between voting and getting the extra hours, or just different things like that.
Totally.
And you can avoid the lines too, which is a big thing for me. I don't like waiting in lines.
No, I don't think many people do.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much for this information. And I feel like this year, especially given all of the allegations of the Trump campaign about, fraud and things like that, did you feel, or do you think this report is even more important now than ever because of those allegations that were being made, and using this as a way to show that, what was observed and what was found is that there was not widespread fraud and things like that?
Yeah, I do. And I think that was also one of the reasons why I thought it was really important that we have observers go and monitor the post-election audit process and the recount, so that we could say, we know we had people who had eyes on the process, and this is what they reported to us. And also, it was a way for people to get engaged themselves, and so maybe they were concerned with the process, or they knew people who were concerned about the process. And if you go and you monitor, which you can, because that's one of the great things about Wisconsin elections, is that every step is transparent. So you can go and monitor it if you're concerned and see what's going on and get the factual information, firsthand for yourself. And so I think that was, I'm hoping that's helpful. I know I've anecdotally talking to our observers and their conversations that they've had with people in their networks, they've said that has been helpful. But I do think it is good to have this document and sharing, actually what we saw, and not trying to sugarcoat it. Like there aren't our elections aren't perfect. There are some issues and things that we should be working on, and that's why we have the recommendations in the report. But I guess some of the fraud things that people are concerned about aren't founded. And so I would rather us have the conversation about the things that are actually issues and things that we can fix and work on. But I feel like some of the conversation is over here. So somehow we need to, I guess, meet in the middle. So we're all talking about the same issues and can work together to improve elections going forward.
Definitely. Very well said. Well, we appreciate your time. Is there anything else about this report? Or actually, we were going to talk about the candidate forums coming up, because in the vein of making sure people continue voting, let's talk about the next election that's coming up, because these local elections, both statewide and, local school board for Milwaukee, these are just as important as presidential elections. So we have the statewide superintendent of public instruction on the ballot coming up in April. And I know you have some candidate forums that the League of Women Voters is going to be collaborating on. So why don't you tell us about those?
Sure. Yeah, there are two upcoming state superintendent of public instruction candidate forums coming up. One is being put on by the Disability Vote Coalition, which we are a member of. That one's on March 4th. And both candidates are going to be there. You have to register in advance, but anyone can attend and sign up. And I know they have the opportunity for people to submit questions for consideration as well. I think that this forum is going to maybe a little bit more focused on disability related issues and access to education. But I think there'll be a lot of great information that's shared during that forum. And then the other one is on March 11th. And this one we're collaborating with the Wisconsin Public Education Network on this forum. The details are on Facebook. And again, if you have any questions that you'd like to submit, you can submit them. I know when I always learn something new when I watch forums. It can also be helpful to watch multiple, because there are different questions and different things come out when people are talking. But I think it will be a great opportunity to learn more about the candidates, and then also what the role of the state superintendent for public instruction is. I know a lot of people maybe haven't heard of the Department of Public Instruction, and that's the top education department in the state, and this role oversees public schools and libraries and has a role in curriculum development and making sure that our kids get the education that they deserve. So it is a really important role.
Right, exactly. So if you are someone who cares about public education, if you have students or family in public education, if you are a product of public education, definitely an election that you should be paying attention to, no doubt. Well, Eileen, thank you so much. Any last topics or comments you want to make for our viewers?
I guess one last thought, since we're talking about the April election, there are also a lot of really important court elections on the ballot as well. And if you're somebody that cares about, criminal justice reform and sentencing and a whole host of things like that, then really do kind of pay attention to these court elections as well, because who sits on the bench really makes a difference in the lives of people who go before the judges.
Absolutely. Thank you for that last comment. Well, thank you so much, Eileen. I'm sure we will have you on again in the future, and we look forward to it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right, bye-bye. Have a good day. Very thankful to Eileen. She's been on our forum a number of times to talk about what's going on with League of Women Voters and all of the things that they are collaborating on in terms of elections. So very thankful. And Alana has been doing an awesome job of adding in information to the comment section. So any questions you have about things we've been discussing, go ahead and look through the comments, and you will find lots of different links and information. And then, as always, check out the League of Women Voters Wisconsin Facebook, and you'll find more information about upcoming elections and voter education from their Facebook as well as ours at SOC. And now I'm just going to go ahead and share a video prepared by Marlene about how to care for someone who has COVID symptoms or has COVID.
Is your family self-isolating, or are you looking after someone at home with coronavirus? Here are our doctor's tips on what to do to help them feel better and when to consider getting medical advice. The main symptoms of coronavirus are a cough and raised temperature. We know most coughs improve naturally over time and without a need for cough syrups. But for children over the age of 1 and adults, squeezing half a lemon into a mug of hot water and adding 1 or 2 teaspoons of honey may help them to cough less. If they've got a fever, make sure they aren't overdressed. Encourage them to drink more fluids and, if appropriate, give them paracetamol. The best advice is to stay home, rest as much as possible, and follow self-isolation guidance. A frequently asked question is, when should I call a doctor? For most children and adults, coronavirus causes mild symptoms that don't get worse and don't need medical help. In some cases, coronavirus can lead to pneumonia or a buildup of fluid in the lungs which causes difficulty breathing. If you notice they're breathing much faster than usual, can't finish a sentence without having to stop for breath, or their lips or face are going bluish, these are some of the signs that show they're struggling to breathe, and you should call for urgent medical help. We know that children generally recover well and rarely need hospitalization, but if you're looking after babies and children, it's a good idea to keep an eye out for signs that suggest they're finding it hard to breathe. These include grunting noises, stomach sucking under and between their ribs, and being more sleepy than usual, or not behaving normally, not playing, or wanting to eat. If you're worried about the symptoms of the person you're looking after, they're becoming confused, or they just don't seem to be getting better, seek medical advice. And if you're caring for someone that's vulnerable, make sure you get medical advice early. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you for preparing that video, Marlene. And I'm just going to share my screen so we can go through some of the meetings that are happening this week. Here we go. Let me make sure that looks okay on there. All right. So today at 10:30, there was a city-county task force on climate and economic equity meeting, as well as at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. there were different committee meetings or work groups from that task force that happened. And then also at 1:30 today, there was a Judiciary and Legislation Committee meeting. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., we'll have a Zoning, Neighborhoods, and Development Committee meeting. And at 9 a.m. also, there will be a City-County Task Force on Climate and Economic Equity work group meeting. So this work group is going to be the Adaptation and Climate Resilience work group. Then today's Monday, yeah. I'm losing track of my days here. So then Wednesday, we're going to have a Finance and Personnel Committee meeting at 9 a.m. And at 3 p.m. Wednesday, there'll be a Historic Preservation Commission meeting. Then at 4:30 Wednesday, there'll be a Youth Council meeting. And then moving into Thursday at 1 p.m., there will be a Community Collaborative Commission meeting, as well as a Charter School Review Committee meeting at 5 p.m. And finally, a Fire and Police Commission meeting at 5 p.m. on Thursday. So lots of meetings to look into this week if you're interested. And we will be reporting out anything of extreme importance that comes out of those meetings. And I also just want to share that you can be requesting your absentee ballots right now for the April 6th election. So like I was talking about with Eileen, even though things are a little bit more under control with how the elections are handled given the pandemic, it's still nice to vote from the comfort of your home, whether it's because you want to avoid icy roads or possible bad weather. So if you're still interested in voting from the comfort of your home, you can absolutely be requesting your absentee ballots for the April 6th election right now. You have to go to myvote.wisconsin or myvote.wi.gov, and you can look into who will be on your ballot, request your absentee ballot, register to vote, and a number of other things through that website. So go do that if you are interested in voting from the comfort of your home. Otherwise, be making a plan to vote for April 6th. Schedule out what hour of the day you'll be able to go. Make sure that you look into your work schedule. Just make sure it's a part of your day that is planned and ready to go. And I will just share the survey promo video with you all now.
Has this live forum been informative and useful to you? What part of the forum could be improved or changed to make it better? Please take a quick survey that's located in the comments section so that we can keep 3 o'clock with SOC going for residents. Thank you for tuning in.
So we're coming to the end of the program today, of the forum today, and I just want to remind you who's going to be with us for the rest of the week. Tomorrow we have someone from the Milwaukee Public Library Youth Programming Department coming in. Then Wednesday we'll have Tommy Molina from Voces de la Frontera. Thursday we'll have Claire Evers, the Deputy Commissioner of Environmental Health from the Health Department of Milwaukee. And then Friday we'll have Reggie Jackson on with us. So we've got a really amazing week for y'all, and we hope to see you tune in on those days. And as always, if you have any questions, concerns, if you want to say hello, please don't hesitate to type that into the comments even after we're live, because we will definitely respond to them. And of course, you can always reach out to SOC with any questions or concerns directly through our Facebook, through our email, or through our phone number. So we look forward to hearing from you, and I will just go ahead and leave you all with the thank you video, and see you next week, Monday.
Hello, Xaviers. I am Esperanza Gutierrez, a longtime resident of the near South Side. We would like to thank everyone for supporting our 3 o'clock with SOC live show and for completing our SOC survey. In addition to thanking our residents for tuning in and sharing our show, we would also like to thank the following sponsors: Wisconsin Voices, Community Development Block Grant, Neo Philanthropy State Infrastructural Fund, the Movement Voter Project, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, the Silver Foundation, City of Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention, the Tithe Foundation, the City of Milwaukee Promise Zone, and all the faithful individuals who support SOC through their personal donations. Thank you. Gracias.